This is the culture.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Cinema Wave podcast. We're back. Michael and I were here to talk about probably the biggest episode of Loki season 2 thus far. It is episode 4. We're going to be talking to you guys. It's called Heart of the TVA. I am one of your hosts. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined by my co-host, Michael Peniston.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Let's jump right into it.
Yes.
So, this is a series that has to wrap things up quickly. We talked about that on last week's episode. Episode 3 was a big jump in terms of what we were hoping to see out of this season. We got to see the reveal of Victor Timely, which we talked about extensively. If you guys haven't seen that episode, please go back and watch that one. But this is going to be our recap of episode 4 right before episode 5 airs on Thursday.
Yes.
So a big thing is Victor Timely is in the TVA.
Mm-hmm.
He's with Mobius. He's with Loki. He's with the crew. And there's a lot. There's a lot that we have to talk about. There's a lot of interesting perspective that we start to see in terms of his role in the TVA or Boris's role in the TVA and the cool interaction they have later on in the episode. There's a lot in terms of Ravonna Renslayer and her relationship with Kang and what she wants to take over with the TVA. So just overall broad strokes, this episode was directed by Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead. They did a lot of Moon Knight. And they're actually now going to be taking over a lot of Daredevil Born Again. So now they're basically becoming these vets in the streaming space for Marvel. What was your take, again, just basically overall thoughts so far on the 4th episode of Loki?
I thought episode 4 was incredible. I said the same thing about episode 3. Loki is just like a great show. It really is. But episode 4, I felt like it really delivered everything that I wanted it to, honestly. It really showcased so much, and it left the door open for a lot of theory, which is something that I love when it comes to Marvel. And so, I just thought it was a really good episode, but we can get into it.
Yeah, I think theory hunting is something that sort of put Marvel in that upper echelon of like cinematic universes for such a long time, because I remember coming off of like even Infinity War, when I came out of that movie and you saw who was left, you like started to decipher. You were like, wow, all right, so all the original Avengers are together and Hawkeye's nowhere to be found, but like obviously they're gonna have to come together, but like what does this mean, because Spider-Man has a movie coming out in a couple months. And then you start to theorize some of the things that would happen. That's in like the bigger picture. Loki handles so much in the center of this multiversal storyline that has, for the most part, underwhelmed so far. So I think that by the end of this series, we're going to have a lot of... I shouldn't even say that. I was going to say we're going to have a lot of questions answered, but I don't even think that's true. I think it's going to start to lead us down this path where we're going to have a little bit more of an idea of the framework of what they want to do with this saga overall. Mm-hmm. But we're going to start diving into some territories that I think when we heard multiverse in the beginning, we were hopeful we were going to go toward that. You know what I mean? I think there were rumors very early on that we were going to see Deadpool at some point. Now, it didn't mean, I don't know if that means within the series. I don't know if that means it's going to be a post-credit stinger at the end of season 2. If Loki was going to have an interaction with Wade, like, I don't know. But that's a big part of it because of the rumors going around too that he's going to be killing off the Fox universe. So there's a lot of ways we can go with this. I agree with you. I think we should hold off on the theories until the end, but I would love to dive into that conversation. But let's start with what we do see, right? Mm-hmm. This is a showcase for me for Ravonna, mm-hmm. and Miss Minutes.
Yes,
has a big role in this as well. So it's sort of a continuation from week 3. And again, that version of Victor Timely, that Kang variant that we see, has a lot more depth to him in this episode, which I really appreciated. And it's such a testament to Major's performance to play multiple versions of a character and dive deeper within a section of a character. Like it's mind blowing to me.
Yes, it is. It's just it's incredible.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's start with the fact that we get a reveal in this episode that Ravonna Renslayer was working with He Who Remains the whole time. We get that reveal. And was that something that surprised you? Did that catch you off guard? Or was it something that in the back of your head, you always might have had an inkling that they had known each other previously? Because we don't see her have any interaction with Jonathan Majors up until we get to the point of the last episode in this season. Even though she goes off to try to find him, we don't see her in the back half, or not the back half, but the last episode or last couple episodes of season 1. And then we get her in episode 3. So was that something that you could have speculated on, or what were your thoughts on it in general?
I feel like prior to a couple episodes ago, it was something that I definitely would have never speculated to happen. I know that I've heard that that's something that happened in the comics. I think you might have mentioned that as well last episode.
I think they have like a romantic relationship or something in the comics. Yeah,
but I honestly knew nothing about her character at all, to be honest. And like, I didn't even know the significance during Loki season 1. And so, to be honest, there was a bit of a surprise, but not completely, because a couple episodes ago, I remember that we heard that audio where you could hear him kind of like saying like he thanked her for helping him lead. So you knew that there was something bigger than that. And then like, I feel like the last episode we kind of saw a spark of romance when you saw that they were talking. So that also kind of hinted that, okay, there was something here present between them, and that kind of like sparked a lot. So it wasn't as big of a shock. I do think that there are parts of it that are a bit shocking though. I don't know, just like the way he decided to do things, like erasing her mind, like that's something I know that like we all knew he did to all of them. But just like the way he did it and how it was like so quick and easy for him and just so Kang of him to do. And so I don't know, it didn't really surprise me. But I actually rewatched Loki season 1 just a little bit
recently, or like leading up to season 2
this past week.
Wow. Okay. All right, so give me this. I need to hear your take on this.
Yes, it's so rewatching it again, it's something that you really would not see in the way that they like set this up, like going into Loki season 1, and just kind of how they had her character as just really like this like dominant sort of like representing this. I have no idea like what I'm doing, but I'm here representing it. I don't know. I just feel like it's just, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just feel like it's good. I feel like where she's at now makes a lot of sense. It does, actually. It's weird. You couldn't see it, but you can kind of see it to a degree. They kind of dropped a few things during season 1 that again kind of hinted at there being some sort of connection between them again, but it was still so like, it was so new at the time that you like really, and so to me, I knew nothing about it. So it was like small things like her dedication, like to a degree, like of it being as crazy as it is and things like that, and like that like uncertainty of her maybe knowing something bigger but not too sure in season 1, and like all of it kind of plays into their connection.
Well, she doesn't play her hand a lot in that, even if she was aware of He Who Remains. But I love how, I think in season 1 too, right, she's like rediscovering this whole other aspect of it, and she's seeking that out when she walks through the time door in season 1 to go and find, I think it's Victor Timely or some variant of Kang. So I think there's a lot more to be said and to see with the connection between those two characters. We do get something, and again, just for everybody, if you didn't already get this, spoilers ahead, spoilers already being talked about. We see at the end of the episode that what we think is that Timely is dead. And that was a big thing that I was not expecting. Because so much was built up to that moment, and he wanted to be the one to basically save the temporal loom and make it all sort of work. And he finally shows this moment of bravery, this version of the character, and he withers away, very similar to how Mr. Fantastic did in Multiverse of Madness, like spaghetti everywhere. But to me, I think there's still more to be seen
Yes.
With Ravonna and Kang.
Yes.
I don't know if we're going to see more of Victor. Do you want to see more of Victor? Do you think that we're going to see more of Victor?
We're jumping into the theories.
Yeah,
already.
let's because I think that it's a central point. His character like I said, shows a lot more depth in this episode.
Yeah.
We saw he's just such a good actor, and he has all these little moments throughout where he plays perfectly within the character, and you see him take this leap, and he obviously loses his life potentially because of it. So we think. So yeah, let's hear what you got. I'm curious. What do you think? You think Victor? No, I'm talking Victor Timely in particular.
Yes.
You think we see him again before the end of Loki season 2?
I do believe we will see Victor Timely again. I don't know if it will be in the same sort of way that we've been seeing him.
Okay.
But I do not think that he's dead. At least he's not fully. Maybe he's not fully Victor Timely. So that was a bad explanation. Let me explain it a little bit better. I believe that when he got spaghettied, because of that radiation, and because of everything else that happened at the end of the episode, and seeing that basically they failed, and what looked like to be the creation fully of, or like the expansion of these branches, and the expansion of the multiverse. I believe that him being outside of there and being absorbed into that sort of aura
was him being expanded everywhere
into every sort of
okay
multiverse. And I believe that moment we just watched the Victor, because I believe that every Kang variant is a variant of Victor Timely. I believe that.
So he's the original one.
He's the original. And I think that what we just watched is him being dispersed again across the entire multiverse as it's being expanded.
Okay. So you think, do you know in the comic, is he the original one?
I don't know.
Okay. So you're going with the theory that you believe Victor Timely is the Kang that sets it off.
I do.
From the very beginning.
I do. And I don't know if that means that before the last episode of this season, we might see him again in like a way where maybe he's confronted by another version of Kang or another couple, and like that's where he kind of is open to the idea of, oh snap, like there are other Kangs. Not only that, but we're powerful. This could have gave him powers.
Yes.
You never know. He got attacked by a lot of radiation.
Yes.
So any one of those Kangs could explain any and everything as to why they're as powerful as they are. I feel like we will see him again, sort of in like a way that in Infinity War, when they were inside the stone, and it was kind of like the red sort of, you know what I'm talking about, in Infinity War, where it was
trying to think when they're in the stone.
I think they were like in the stone, but they were like in something. I think it might have been where they all got sent to.
Okay.
When they got dusted or whatever. But something like that, where it's like the equivalent of like a big bright light heaven sort of place is what I'm trying to get at.
Purgatory, in a sense.
Purgatory sort of thing. I think that we might see him with them or something like that, or some version of Victor. Again, we will see him, but that will be Victor then coming to the understanding of what just happened and what's really to come.
I like the theory of him sort of, because he's such an intelligent guy, and I think there's going to be other versions of Kang that are very persuasive, that are like, hey, listen, like you were able to build this all on your own, like in a time where you didn't have the tech to do it. Like, we need you, bud. Like you could be the Kang to make it all work.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to become very power hungry. So I like that theory for sure. What was your overall thought as soon as he sort of withered away? Were you like, because it's somewhat of a funny,
it's hilarious.
It's a funny visual. It's not only a funny visual, but it's also like just how it. There's so much tenseness built up to this moment. The music is heavy. The synths are loud. Yeah. You have all these cutaways to every character right before he goes out there, and he finally steps out, and he's like, ah, and he's just gone, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
And they're all just standing there like, like what the hell? And I know I don't know. It was so funny. First initial view when I watched it, I laughed out loud just because the scream, it just was so unexpected that it was like, and the reaction again that they all gave. It was a funny moment, But then I think that it took like a second for that comedic effect to wear off to realize like, oh snap, wait a second. Like this is actually kind of big. Like as funny as this is, this could be huge.
Yes.
So I mean, like, yes, the moment it happened, it did catch me off guard completely.
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah, me too.
But nah, it's I think that it was the best way that they could have done it. And like you said, every like sort of thing leading up to it was just not at all. It was such a buildup. And they do this thing this season, and just in Loki maybe, where like they'll do like this slow, I think it's mainly this season where they do like this like slow, intense zoom in, and a lot of these shots are kind of like very like ominous. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah,
they kind of give off like a bit of a horror vibe.
I think it's interesting because I think they're doing that as a strategy to try to make you look closer, but at the same time, I think so much of this season is a retread of last season because it's like a paradox. It's like a giant time paradox. Like we're starting from scratch. We're starting over. We're starting from the beginning of the time. And I think that a lot of that is like, I think it's a really good theory on your part to think that we're going to basically start from the beginning, which is not like Victor Timely is the beginning of time, but he's coming from this somewhere way in the past of the MCU timeline. I would love to see them play in that timeline more. Like if we ever get to a point, like even in a future Avengers movie, if we start jumping universes and you see like some of our heroes in like different garb and they're like fighting in like 1850 Chicago, like to me that'd be sick. But yeah, man, I think that it was really smart too for them to end this episode on a cliffhanger. Like it was, you finally had something at the end of an episode this season where it was the first time this season where I was like, oh, fuck, I need more. Like, I want more from this, like, right now. And the first season, I think you get that, like, 5 out of 6 episodes. Like, you're like, what am I watching? I need to learn more. This, I think it's been taking its time a little bit. Not for the lack of a better term. But it starts thrusting things in such a different direction. I do want to talk about one aspect, which I thought was very interesting. It was one of my favorite things that I've seen throughout this whole season, which is the interaction that I sort of previewed a little bit in the beginning between Major's Timely and Ke Huy Quan's OB.
Oh, yeah.
Where he meets him and he's like, oh my God, you're Ouroboros. He goes, you wrote the TVA handbook. And he's like, no, but you're Victor Timely. And I got my research from you. So how is that making sense? And it's like the whole chicken and the egg sort of thing. And it leads to a great comedic moment, but it's something that I start to speculate the role that Ouroboros has in all of this. Because he talks about it too, because the snake that ate the tail, and that's what an Ouroboros is, like the literal name. Remember we talked about that week 1?
Oh yeah, wow.
So he might have a deeper sort of resonance in this whole Kang sphere.
I did think about that. Like, I didn't think about it as deep as you did because that's
just research.
Yeah.
Like I said, that screen crush. That's Ryan Airy. That's research. Just reading a lot online, honestly.
But I did, like, as soon as that interaction happened. First of all, great interaction. Like, again, like both those characters are like the highlights of the season. So aside from Loki too.
Yeah.
But that was a great moment. But I do agree that Ouroboros will probably play a bigger role because to a degree, Ouroboros is the one that created this. If you think about it, because I mean, like he is like like you said, like he is the the
snake that eats the tail.
The snake that eats the tail.
Yeah.
So I do believe that he will have a bigger part in this. I do believe that Kang will use him a lot.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Yeah, I do.
He's going to be an orchestrator.
Yeah.
I think that so much of it. There's a line of dialogue too that goes back to your theory, which I think is again just plays into how you might have your hand on the pulse a little bit with what we might see happen. He goes, well, I was inspired by this historical figure. He goes, and this guy would have been as big as Einstein if he had the resources. That went immediately to Victor Timely's head. How could it not? It's like, well, this guy was brilliant. And if he just had a little bit more at his disposal, now if this guy is stretched across multiple universes with all the resources that he needs and builds these cults essentially of himself, there's a lot to play with there. So I think that Ke Huy Quan is going to have a much bigger and maybe sinister role by the end of this.
I do too, and it might not even be the only time we see him in this phase, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
obviously the TVA is because like Loki property, but he's playing way too much of a role in the Kang dynasty for him to strictly just be a Loki character at this point. At least how I view him.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they start to play around with maybe he's like a variant. Like, is OB a different variant of Kang because he's inspired by Victor Timely, but Victor Timely's inspired by his writings? Like, is it a front? Is it just another variant that they created for the show that's not comic accurate? Because Marvel has also done that, right? Marvel does not. Feige's talked about this so many times. They do not create adaptations of the comic books. They take moments of the comics. They're inspired by the comics, but they have their own writers' rooms. They go their own direction. They're inspired by the character traits, but they take their own liberties a lot. I mean, even you saw that in Infinity War and Endgame. Like, Endgame is built from scratch, essentially, and Infinity War doesn't follow the Infinity War comic to a T. The other thing is, we are aware, based in a comedic moment in the first season, that Loki variants, for example, don't all look the same.
Yes.
So now we have a post-credit scene where we see a bunch of different Kangs, right? But who knows if a Kang variant can look like Ke Huy Quan?
It could totally look. I mean, like, we also got it with Spider-Man too, if you really think about it.
Yes,
Spider-Man look alike.
Yeah.
So,
and that's Spider-Verse. You're talking Spider-Verse, or you're talking?
I'm talking about Spider-Man,
even just in No Way Home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's very possible for them to do something like that, and it would make sense. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
We're about to get a bunch of versions of Kang, so I don't think it would hurt to obviously
have sort of a different view on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Give me something else that was a highlight for you in this episode.
Let me see. I wanted to ask you about there was actually something else I was going to say actually that tied into the theory before.
Okay.
That just kind of makes things make more sense a little bit, because I like how you started this whole talk off about how Loki will maybe make things make sense for the future, but it also kind of showcase what's to come, or at least made sense as to what's happened already.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the multiverses kind of fell through with what they've done. I genuinely believe that whatever happened at the end of this episode happened at the same time as everything that we've already seen. So I believe that...
Can you explain that to me a little more?
I believe, and maybe this is a stretch. Maybe this is as stretched out as Victor Timely. but I feel like whatever happened, because I genuinely believe that last moment we just watched like the creation of a lot of things.
Okay.
And I do believe that maybe other things were happening at that moment. Like, I believe that maybe this is a prime example of Marvel playing around with time and how they're releasing things.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a prime example. I keep saying prime. I'll give you an example. Doctor Strange in Spider-Man, that whole moment when he did the whole spell. Obviously, like, Peter kind of messed things up in that moment with things. But we don't really know at this point when things are happening and stuff like that. And maybe I'm wrong. In
terms of the like sacred timeline.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So how do we know that at the same time that he did that spell, the events of Loki that we just watched didn't just happen? Like,
so basically your theory is that because of Timely's death,
yes,
or spaghettied, happens at the same time of that happening, it has essentially led some other characters to make like uncharacteristic choices that have further seen the multiverse sort of crack through.
Yes. I believe that basically what I'm trying to say is that I believe that certain events that have happened already have now happened
simultaneously.
Not only that, but after the fact too. So
okay.
I'll give you another example. Ant-Man returning after his fight with Kang. He's for sure in another universe, because at that point the multiverse was already open because of what had just happened in this episode.
Oh, so you don't think he returns back to his original
I
universe?
don't. Maybe that's another conversation for another.
No, it is. I actually
but
didn't. I've never seen that theory, so that's interesting.
I don't. I believe at the end of Ant-Man, when you see him like walking around,
Being happy, yeah,
he's not in his. I don't think he's in the
Okay.
actual universe.
I
believe that all of the things that we're seeing though have either happened, like you said, simultaneously with what we're watching right now, or it happened after the fact, and at this time the multiverse has already been created. But this is the moment where certain parts of it are really being created. Not just the multiverse, but the multiverse in sort of in the Kang dynasty.
Yes,
is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the multiversal saga.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because
Very interesting.
I don't think we've seen it all, obviously.
Yeah. We still have a lot of movies in the phase. We got 2 Avengers movies coming up.
Yes.
So there's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Now my mind's go. You got my mind going now.
I tell you, I've been theorizing like crazy. Tomorrow, you guys are gonna pay for my therapy bills because I need these episodes right now. What's it called? No, but just overall, how do you like? What did you think about just the events of the how it ended? Everything.
Yeah, I think that like just to circle back a little bit, I think that so much is going to be so heavily invested in this villain. The not opposite, but very different to how the first few phases were with Thanos, right? Like we get these little glimpses of Thanos, but so much of the story is reliant on Kang's service to the multiverse that we got those little inklings of him. We see the He Who Remains, and now we get him as the villain in Quantumania. If all goes well, knock on wood, obviously, we hope everything is okay with the trial of Jonathan Majors and however they decide to go in that direction, because if God forbid they have to recast, I mean, he's Kang. You can make him look however you want him to look. This character is going to be, I feel, in almost everything going forward now. Like you can't ignore it anymore. This is not an Eternal situation, right? Where we have a giant sentient being fucking floating out of the ice that we haven't addressed at all since then. Which also could play in the multiverse of it all. Like, that's a big thing. Like Eternals is, we could have a whole conversation probably about that movie because there's so much that happens in it.
Yeah.
But that whole aspect with the Eternals, how this giant fight happens between gods, is never talked about since it happened. That in and of itself can be something where it's being fucked around all the time. Like Kang could have put them in a separate universe where nobody is aware of who the fuck these people are.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
There's so much that we can go into with him. I think we have to wait and see. There's a lot to theorize, but we need some more shoes to drop. We need some more shoes to drop.
We do. Crazy with the theory.
Going to a more grounded part that I really enjoyed from this episode too, and we finally get a really good Loki Sylvie moment in this episode. When she gets really pissed off about them not being able to make a decision, she goes, "Why don't we all just go and get pie? You guys want to go get pie? We'll just go fucking sit down and get pie." Then she ends up where the in the cafeteria where the key lime's pie is, but they have and that's the funny, and that's this episode to me was the closest thing to season 1 where you get the perfect balance of comedy and sci-fi and drama. This episode, as like we said a little bit off camera, I was like, dude, this reached an apex for me, and I was so happy because like if last week's episode was like 7 on like the scale of 1 to 10, this one like broke the Richter scale. Like it got above it for me because there was so much that was essential to this central storyline as well as the MCU as a whole. But the moment where she goes, "Well, what do you just want us to play God?" It's fucking great.
Oh yeah.
She goes, "You just want us to play gods?" And he's like, "I hate to break it to you, we're fucking gods, dude. Like, what do you want?"
Right? Like
it was awesome. So what did you think about that moment?
I thought that that specific moment right there was hard. I thought that was just like tough. Like, oh man, and I knew it was gonna be like because we are gods, but just like it was delivered perfectly. But I did really like Sylvie and Loki's interaction a lot this episode. I loved Sylvie a lot this episode. I kind of mentioned in the last episode when we talked that I wasn't a big fan of what they were doing with Sylvie so far. But this episode, I feel like Sylvie was not only back, but she also represented the audience to a degree.
Yes.
Because I have been like wondering what headspace Mobius has been in this entire season, and so like her finally being like pie, like things like that, and like hinting at things like that. I just felt like she was a lot more relatable, which I feel like she was to a degree in season 1. But as far as their interaction, I thought that it was, again, that season 1 sort of interaction, like you said, and it felt more. It honestly felt a little bit more natural.
Yes,
too. It did. It really did. As a whole, everybody talking together. I don't know. I just felt like it worked a lot better. And what was I going to say? I actually did have a question that I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
A specific moment where you saw we kind of like had that cut back to episode 1 where you saw Loki and Sylvie.
When we see him pruning himself.
Yes. I was just going to ask you, what did you think? How did you like that?
I like the execution of it.
Exactly.
I thought it had a really good through line from episode 1. It made that moment in episode 1 feel more earned. And I think that sort of jettisoned us into that other sphere with Sylvie and Loki again, where so much of the last couple episodes have been them obviously having confrontation and being on like opposite sides of the coin, so to speak.
Yeah.
But none of it is done in a way with like nuanced writing, and none of it is done with like what you said feels like an authentic voice of both Sylvie and Loki together. This episode as a whole was, to me, the closest thing to season 1 Sylvie and Loki, where you start to see that relationship develop, and it feels like they're starting to redevelop it.
Yeah.
They both felt so comfortable in seeing each other that when you see it from this perspective, kind of going backwards and seeing what we saw in episode 1. So I really like that. But the other side of it too is she plays the opposite side. She's, like you said, playing the audience. All Sylvie knows of the TVA is bad. Everything she's ever had to deal with this organization has been bad. Now there are people within the organization, Mobius, B-15, even I guess Docs to a certain degree, that older character that is talking alongside I think it was X5, who was in some of the earlier episodes.
Kind of like
I think she's Scottish, her character. Yeah. All of them are trying to fix everything. And she's like, why? Why do you want to fix? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're already screwed. I was trying to live my life the way I was trying to live it. You guys dragged me back in here because she's like, I made my decision already. And Loki's like, well, we got to try something else. Like, again, like she's like, well, it's not up to us. We're not gods. And that kind of takes you back to that dramatic difference that they have between the two of them, which I think is a really big strength to their relationship and constantly butting heads, but in a healthy way. Like, I think one of them is going to die relatively soon. I don't know if it's going to be by the end of the season, but I think it's going to sort of push us into this other. I have a feeling it's going to be Sylvie.
Yeah, I have a feeling as well, just because knowing Loki's character and knowing the misfortune that he gets, I feel like it will help skyrocket him, and also this sort of hero arc that he's on too. I feel like that will kind of push it a little bit more. Maybe that could give it more meaning. Yeah. For what he's chasing or what he's trying to do. Or I don't really think he knows what he's trying to chase right now. He just wants to figure things out and answer these questions. And I mean, he does. He knows what's happening, but
it's a departure from his character.
Exactly.
Which is very interesting too. I would love to like sit and talk to a casual viewer, because I think Tom Hiddleston is just so likable, and I don't think this is like him playing Loki. Like there are season 1, you could see there was more Loki to him, because then he starts to sort of become this different version of the character. But this season feels like an entirely different character, which could be something else entirely. Like maybe I'm reading too much into it. That who knows? I don't know. It's hard to speculate and theorize when so much of this is the unknown until it starts to be laid out in front of us, the way that it was like in the finale of season 1, when He Who Remains does such a great job of being like, well, this is the way it was, and this is the way that it could have been, and this is what you guys have a choice to make. And like, it has to be laid out that way in order for you to be able to be like, all right, I think I get it now. But we're going to have a lot more of that in this phase.
We are. This is just the beginning of this.
It is. It's definitely just the beginning. Another big moment, we prefaced it a little bit earlier on. We do get another interesting death because Miss Minutes.
Oh yeah, oh my
Miss Minutes
gosh.
basically just ceases to exist.
Yeah.
So we see her and Ravonna get back to the TVA, start to try to get X5 and other people on board trying to help her get Victor Timely to essentially go back to fix, not necessarily like the prune timelines, but trying to have this different, wants to reset the TVA essentially and make him the leader and make them leaders. Miss Minutes gets taken down, and I think it's who is it that ultimately takes Miss Minutes down? Is it OB?
OB.
It is OB, right?
OB, yeah.
So that's another thing to me where it's like, is OB in on this? Does he know something that the audience might not know? You know, but we get a really cool digital like effect of her death.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. What did you think about her death scene?
Her death scene was good. It was still sassy, as Miss Minutes is gonna be. I thought that it kind of needed to happen. To be honest, I think that Miss Minutes' character is so good. It's a really good character, but it offers such a level of that uncertainty because you almost feel like she knows something. She knows a lot of stuff that she's not saying, and she could. And like the fact that she's here and like she's almost like playing a certain character. And I feel like she kind of just needed to be taken out of that equation just for us to really be able to focus on certain things without. I don't know. It also kind of just matched. I felt Victor's death in a certain way because I feel like again there are a lot of answers that come with both of those characters and them dying the way that they did. I feel like that is just pushing that uncertainty and pushing that story a little bit further. So again, I feel like it was important. I think it was good her dying the way that she did. I will say though that scene was very crazy. Not the death scene of her, but the death scene of her and Ravonna killing those other people.
Yes,
that was a major. This season has been pretty dark.
It has been dark.
This has been a dark season.
Yeah.
But that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It kind of showed just the headspace that a lot of these characters are really in.
Did you also see the marketing social media ploy really cool by Marvel where on their Instagram account for Loki, they got rid of every previous post. And it was only one of Miss Minutes going access denied. So they're leaving the breadcrumbs. They're trying to get everybody to theorize, which I love. I again, getting us back into this territory where we can have audience speculation and excitement around what is to come in the overall vision is the sweet spot of what the MCU should be.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much that happens in this episode and they do a great job of like the ensemble of it all. Like they cut back to every character and everyone gets their moment. Even Mobius, where Sylvie sort of questions him on that. Like Mobius had that whole story in the first season where he wants to get to the jet ski, and everyone's talking about the jet and he has a family and everyone's like, when are we going to get more on that? And then she's like, you never went back to find out? Like you never... And I think it's because he's unaware of it because so much of it has been wiped. And I'm curious if like the whole TVA was behind helping He Who Remains get to where he was at. And then he wiped everybody's brains. Like that's something we know that he wiped everybody anyway. But how much of an effect did all these other people have? Are we going to see something at the end of this season where Loki is basically seeing it replayed for him? That Mobius is a big part of why the universe was what it was with He Who Remains.
That's actually a major. I didn't even think about it like that at all.
And that could be another, like that could be just as emotionally draining as Sylvie dying. Like him being like seeing that Mobius is behind all this, that he was trying to protect against, and he almost killed Loki because of it. And he has no, like Mobius is going to be like, I don't even know. Like that's not what I know because my brain is wiped, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a major point because you really don't like you said, you don't know how much of the extent all of these people have played. Knowing that Renslayer has played as much of a part that she has, and he wiped all their memories and hers, they had to have played. And honestly, any bit of help is something at this point. So, I mean, like, that's a whole other story I didn't even think about in that.
Yeah, it opens all these different theories, all these different things that we can start to see play out in the next couple of weeks. The loom is still destabilized. I mean, it implodes at the end. You don't know what that means for the future of these characters.
I don't think that the loom will ever be fixed.
Okay. Even after the war, potentially, in Secret Wars?
I think that after the war, then like maybe it could get fixed then. But I think that the loom is in some way. Remember that chair that in Ant-Man that he was,
yes,
like,
and he shows the prototype, and that's like, this is my greatest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he's gonna try and have his own loom essentially, and like that would be the time loom, or he'll be in. I don't know. I just don't think
like he'll be trapped in his own loom by the end of maybe this phase.
Yeah,
the saga. I mean, yeah,
something like that.
Okay,
so,
interesting.
I don't know, but I think that the loom will be not repaired for a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We covered mostly everything. Mm-hmm. I think. Any speculation for what we could see next week?
Oh man, I really have no idea. I think maybe it would be cool. This is if I was Marvel, I would go about next week's episode with a little bit more backstory of Victor Timely.
Okay.
I would, just to show him, just because I feel like there's a lot to that character that we've seen in a little bit, but there's a lot that we still haven't seen.
So are you thinking more in terms of like a solo episode of his character?
In his time, sort of thing.
Interesting.
Younger, seeing him kind of come up a little bit, sort of thing.
I would love that.
Makes him. And that could be the whole episode. And then it could get back to what happened in the last episode if that happens. I just feel like his character is still still you can't trust him to a degree. And he's so wise, he's so smart, but there's just something about he's Kang. So there's something about him that we need to know that what in him coming up kind of trauma caused.
I was going to say, it has to be trauma inducing, something that, I mean, again, it could be as simple as him being bullied. You hope it's not that simple, right. But like something that made him tick.
Yeah.
That made him start to just be like, all right, well then I'm just going to become the smartest person in the world. And I'm going to make sure that these people.
Exactly. So wow. I feel like that would be the best way to go about it, and then get back to the regular schedule. The last episode could be literally anything, because like it could just pick up. But I just feel like we need to see Victor Timely a little bit more before this happens. So
I want to do a little bit of research really quick before we wrap this up, because I agree. I wasn't anticipating that, but I think that would be perfect. So I'm going to stick with that. I think. Michael, you did a great job there. I think that's exactly what I would do, because you start to get a little bit more of that version of the character. But I want to look ahead a little bit to see what else is coming from Marvel in the next couple of years, or at least 2024, because though I do think that's a great way to proceed, you would have probably so many different characters to touch on by the time you get to the final episode. That I feel like there has to be some sort of continuation relatively quickly to bring us back within the TVA, because there's so much that's going to be sort of weighing.
I think that could be as soon as the Marvels. I think that we're going to see a Kang variant, not maybe like a major part of that movie, even if it's just like a post-credit scene. I think it will be as soon as.
I was gonna. All right, so I think a post-credit scene in the Marvels would be a smart play.
Yeah.
And it would be a reasonable play. I'm curious now, which obviously this doesn't have a major effect on the story, but it has to be in consideration. The SAG strike is still happening as of this recording. And I think Deadpool 3 was the first scheduled MCU film in 2024. And it's also Deadpool's like MCU debut. Yes. I think that a lot of that film is going to have to do with this.
Yeah.
And so if that gets pushed now, do we think that we start to lose the audience again? That's what I'm worried about, frankly, because I don't believe between the Marvels, even Disney Plus series, I don't know what we'd have maybe in between. Echo, I know, is wrapped. And I think so is Wanda, Darkhold Diaries. So we could maybe see something with Wanda, but I think that's not Wanda. I'm sorry. Agatha, Darkhold Diaries.
Mm-hmm.
So we can maybe see something with Agatha Harkness, maybe. But do you think that we just go maybe post-credit Marvels and then we hope for a timely release with Deadpool 3, which as of right now is scheduled for May 3rd of 2024, but they still have to finish filming. They're almost done. I believe that the director, Sean Levy, said they were 98% done before the strike hit.
Oh, really? No way.
So they're close,
Okay.
but you got to think a movie, and now they did film a lot on practical sets, but I'm hearing through rumors, it's a big ensemble. There's going to be a lot that happens. If the TVA is involved, there's going to be even more CGI, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to think that movie gets pushed unless the strike wraps up tomorrow, right? Like, we're most likely getting it pushed, even if it's just a couple months to July. Do you think that that's a little too much time in between, that you might start to lose interest, or?
Yes, I do. I think that Marvel, they're lucky enough to be in a place where, like, it's like the same way as how they've been releasing kind of like bad content, but we're still watching.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like Marvel's lucky enough that they have that fan base that, like, someone is going to watch it no matter what. I do, though, think that a lot of these things are going to affect that, and it's going to have a lot of people losing interest. I know myself, I might lose a little bit of interest at times. I don't think I'll lose interest, actually. I'm like, after Loki, I'm like, yo,
I think, but that's the thing,
Yeah.
and they have to have a consistency streak again. That's the problem, right? With the MCU early on, you knew what you were getting, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was popcorn. It is what it was. I don't mean to say that as a big MCU fan,
Mm-hmm.
you get so accustomed to their formula, and also you're invested in that story. This phase has moments that can get you invested again, and luckily we're coming off a high of this Loki episode. But by the time this wraps up, which we might end on a high and be like, this is so exciting, we don't know what's going to happen with the Marvels. We don't know. We might love the Marvels. We might not like the Marvels.
Yeah.
After that, if we go to so let's say we don't like the Marvels, which is based around a $1 billion character in Brie Larson's version of Captain Marvel, made over $1 billion at the box office, the first movie. You bring in Monica Rambeau, and you bring in Miss Marvel. Have you watched Miss Marvel?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I loved Miss Marvel. I actually thought Miss Marvel was one of the better Disney Plus shows they've done, personally.
Okay.
That's a whole other conversation if we want to dive into it another day.
Okay.
But I think so much is on the relationship between her and Captain Marvel in this. But if for some reason that doesn't hit, the next thing you're going to hinge on then is either the character of Echo, which you get introduced in a lackluster Hawkeye series, or Agatha, which, though she was a very popular character by the end of WandaVision, it just seems like a lot of her story is going to be over here.
It does seem like that. I believe that, and maybe this is just me trying to follow that Marvel formula, I believe that there will maybe be something in Agatha that will be very, like, catching the audience off guard sort of thing, that will play a major role. I don't know if that will tie Doctor Strange and Wanda back into it. But I do feel like those two characters are also a very important part of Kang and this story moving forward. I do think that in between, they are probably going to, just because there are a lot of things that they want to release for this whole saga, at least. I do think that a lot of releases won't fully be focused with this. It will be setting up a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
So, for example, Echo, that might be solely just to set up Daredevil, as like another sort of character, or just kind of build that sort of street world. Which is something like that's another thing that Marvel's been kind of doing as well, is still building not just this saga, but building small parts of it.
The new Avengers is one part of it. The street level heroes is another one.
Like all the teams and everything, and like so I mean, like, they're doing a lot. I feel like it's just going to be a very slow thing no matter what. The strike is going to affect it no matter what. It's already affected so many things. So I feel like that will always be an ongoing sort of, unless they fix it tomorrow. Please fix it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like that for sure will be an ongoing factor, and they will lose some people. They will lose some people throughout it. But again, then it just goes to who are the diehard fans that I guess are watching the things they've been putting
Yeah,
out.
it's true.
So
We fall under that category, folks,
Yeah.
if you didn't already know that.
Yes.
So all in all, though, I think that we both really, really loved this episode. I think it brought us to a different sort of feeling that we haven't had since the first season of the show. Probably the best feeling we've had in a long time with MCU content.
Yes, definitely. Episode 3 was good, but it was nice that this solidified the fact that, okay, we are back in motion. Like it wasn't just that episode. Like maybe like this could be the start of like
this back in the swing of things.
It's back.
Yes, for sure. So that's going to do it for us covering episode 4 of Loki, Heart of the TVA. We talked about a lot of stuff here. We theorized a lot. Michael came out strong with theories, which we love. We have 2 episodes left.
Yes.
Very, very exciting times indeed. Anything else you want to add just to wrap up?
I'm excited. You can't wait for the next talk.
No, that's how I feel too.
Yeah.
Just signing off, guys. I am Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Michael Peniston.
And we'll see you guys next time.